that was my biggest mistake. I was in retail before I got into real estate.
Uh-huh.
I thought the customer was just gonna come to me. I thought I got my real estate license now.
Yeah, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm
Yeah,
ready
I'm
to
like,
go conquer. I have a beautiful smile. I have the work ethic. Where are my clients at?
I thought I was just gonna get like 10, 15 clients, and the reality was that it wasn't, because in retail, that's what would happen. Like I would get 10, 15, hundreds of customers walking into a store a day. So I
Yeah.
thought, oh, real estate's gonna be the same thing. Boom, rude awakening. It was not the same thing. Hi, everybody. This is Joseluiz Morales. Welcome back to the Morales Group Show. This is episode number 69. Today, we've got a very special guest. Her name is Porshae Brown.
Yeah.
She is a real estate agent. She's a real estate investor as well, too. And then she's also a social media influencer. Welcome to the show, Porshae. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for just the opportunity to be invited on your show.
Likewise, I'm excited. It's very rare that I meet a successful real estate agent that begins to think like an investor and is also implementing social media strategy. So we're pretty excited about it. So before we get into it, I just want to invite our viewers, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, feel free to subscribe. If you've liked some of our previous content, feel free to share it too. So I want to just start off by just asking, like, who is Porshae? How did you get into real estate? And just a little bit about yourself.
Okay, awesome. So yes, my name is Porshae Brown. I am a Houston real estate agent. I've been in the business 3 years now, so it seems kind of like forever, but I got into it back in 2018 after being laid off from my corporate job in hospitality. So I was working for a hospitality company that managed Marriott, Hyatt's, such as the big names, and I was a sales manager. So what I thought I was coming up on a promotion ended up being, unemployment. So I took what they gave me as a settlement to end out my contract. And it took about a month for me to figure out if I wanted to stay in the business or if I wanted to get into something else. That hence me started networking and I started meeting other real estate agents. And when I did that, I was like, oh, I think I might like this. And another thing, being a parent, I really wanted to go into something that gave me the flexibility of time, and also not limiting me in how much money I could make. Because what I think I found in corporate, probably not during that time, it was more so afterwards, that I was really limited on what I could do, how to think, how I could be myself. And that's not healthy. When you work for these companies, you try to achieve a certain level of expectation, not only out of yourself, but what other people want from you. And when that's not really recognized or compensated, it kind of gives you, the idea of like you're not good enough. So I do not ever want to be put in a position like that again. And so I got my real estate license, and within 2 months, I was doing it full time, which is no joke. And I've been doing it ever since.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Definitely does provide flexibility. And it's also the reason I got into it was just there is no limit, meaning that you can make $100,000, you can make $1 million, you can $2 million.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no cap to the real estate. So how have the years looked for your life? Did you get your first deal immediately? Did it take you a couple of months to get that first deal? And how has it progressed as well, too?
So the first year, I think I spent the first part of after getting my license really self-educating myself on how to be an agent. Because we can take the test all day long, but that does not prepare you for what you're about to experience. So the brokerage that I was with at the time offered tons of training. So I was in the classroom from the start of the day to the end of the night because I knew that going into a transaction, I did not want to mess that up for anyone. sometimes that is the most expensive, the most important investment in people's lives. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh my God, I have no room for error. So I was taking contract classes, I was taking business courses, I was taking fiduciary responsibility courses, anything that you can think of that creates a good agent. That's what I really focused on at the very beginning. And then I happened to do my first transaction with a family member that
Uh-huh.
owned a home outright. It was a couple of family members, but one came to me directly because they knew that I had got my real estate license.
Uh-huh.
And they wanted to sell the property cash, and I had just met an investor. And at the time I met him, I was just making connections. I was like, oh my God, I know an investor. So I presented that property to that investor. He bought it cash for 50K. He put about 26,000 into it. And then I got paid on the front end, and then I listed it and got paid on the back end. So my first two transactions were a fix and flip that I helped him acquire. I gave suggestions when it came to design, and then just little things that they wanted me to partake in. And so that gave me an understanding of, okay, I see that this is a different realm that school didn't really teach us, but a lot
Hmm.
of people are interested in. So I started working with other investors, and then I started understanding, oh my God, I kind of got thrown into it. I started understanding short sales,
Hmm.
foreclosures, fix and flips, wraparounds,
Hmm.
owner financing, all of these things. I'm like, oh my God, like all the agents in my office, half of them didn't even know what this stuff was. And I'm like, I've only been in the business like under a year, and I'm like, and I'm around it, and I'm learning. So it was a different introductory to real
Hmm.
estate that a lot of agents don't really get into.
Hmm.
And so it was different. So within the first 3 months, I had those first two deals under my belt.
A fix and flip as the
Yeah,
first property. Awesome.
yeah.
That's the thing that I love about real estate as well too, Porsche, is that like sometimes you meet certain clients that are doing certain things and certain strategies, and you learn a lot from your clients.
Correct.
Like your clients can teach you a lot. They can teach you about wraparounds. They can teach you, like, at least for me, that's been the case. Or like I remember I have a friend in the Valley who's also a real estate agent. He taught me about something called accessory dwelling units, which is like additional units that you can build on top of garages. But just a lot of stuff. So that's pretty awesome. I read in the notes that recently you also had been working with developers. Do you mind elaborating on that a little bit and kind of how
Yeah.
that transpired? Because I've been personally thinking about like, okay, like I'm working agent to owner, but if you end up working with a developer, you can land a 14 townhouse complex, 20 townhouse complex, a 100 townhouse complex. So, do you mind elaborating a little bit on that and how that came about?
Yeah, no worries. So the first investor that I worked with is now my client and developer. So he
Wow.
was not yet developing at that time, but we built that relationship to where the opportunity presented itself, and I had the resources, the knowledge, and the brokerage to help assist me with marketing his 14 townhome development, which here in Houston in the Fifth Ward area, it's called Liberty Square Townhomes.
That's
And
awesome.
it's a mix of 2 story and 3 stories. So
Mhm.
this property, that same investor was sitting on, I mean, I think he had bought it back in like 2013, waited till the market called for the development prices to actually make sense, because
Mhm.
he owner financed it.
Mhm.
So there was a point in time where, you have to take as much money that you owed to the bank to even be able to get an approval for construction loans and things like that. So I think he had broke ground on our development that we represent back in 2019.
Mhm.
So really, it's just I had the motivation, I had the tenacity that was recognized at the time where he needed me the most. So now it's like, you cultivate these relationships. It may start off super small. You
Hmm.
may be doing tons of work at first, not knowing where this is going to lead you. Because that, looking back at it, that was a small fix and flip. And, we've just built on top of that. And then now I get to market and manage the buyers for this new construction development here in the heart of Houston. So,
That's so.
it just really starts with one opportunity and building off of that. And since then, hence investors and developers, they all hang out with each other. So I have been referred to other investors, other sellers, and people now know me in that marketplace as, oh, she sells in Fifth Ward, or she knows, the price points and what's
Yeah.
going on. And you want to kind of focus on a couple of areas that you have of interest that are also up and coming, so that you can
Mhm.
be that go-to person. So
Yeah.
I have now established myself as one of those people, and I just am super blessed with the opportunities that have come across for all of that to work out. So that's kind of how I got started working with developers, and now I have like two more under my belt, with some new construction homes coming to the market toward the end of this year, early next year, and they're going to be in different areas of Houston. But I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Just out of curiosity, how did you end up meeting this the developer by chance? Was it like at a networking event? Was it through a cold call? Was it uh,
So the very first investor that I had mentioned, who is now a developer, I met him through an acquaintance we know.
awesome?
I was literally telling the person that we mutually know,
Hmm.
hey, I love these things about real estate and these are my goals. And he was like, I need you to meet someone who does
So
that or may need you. And it really just started from there. And there's tons of agents, and you always have to understand what your core values are and how you
mhm,
can be valuable to other people, right?
mhm,
So I was fresh out of real estate school, not knowing how I can assist an investor. But things that investors need are comps.
mhm,
They need you to show properties sometimes. They need you to understand numbers so that, oh, and then you have buyers. We have buyers for properties that they want to sell. So
mhm.
with this one investor, we've done multiple deals together because I've seen a need for what he wants, and I try to fit it so that I'm that go-to person when something arises. So, I mean, it just comes over time and experience where you start to understand, like, okay, I see how I can help investors, or how I only want to limit my time to certain investors because of the relationship that you have cultivated. And that's where I kind of see that expanding, because at first I was like, oh, I'm super investor friendly. I'll work with any investor that wants me. Well, then that got super overwhelming and it drove me crazy. And
Yeah.
you find out who is good for you and who is not. So there's
Hmm.
pros and cons to that. But you
Hmm.
don't know unless you put yourself out there, to understand what that world really looks like. So again, I mean, it started with one, and now you just build off of, oh my God, Porsche knows this person, or hey, she did really well on my transaction. You should talk to her. She's an expert in this area.
Yeah.
So you start to have people that are able to speak on your behalf and who market and sell you to other people. And that's kind of how that has worked out for me.
That's awesome. It just kind of speaks to the power of relationships. You were introduced to that investor by that friend, then you developed the relationship, had no idea. And I'm a believer that if you always just put out good energy, it always comes back around. So that investor, I mean, at that time, you didn't even have the first deal to present to him, but that introduction was made. Then, because that investor was open to meeting with you, he got that first fix and flip, which benefited everybody. You know, it benefited you, it benefited them, which is some.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's super exciting to know where I started, where we started, and how things have just progressed. And I want any relationship, any business relationship, to always be mutually beneficial. And I tell new agents that hit me up all the time, who want advice and things like that. You have
Mhm.
to be able to differentiate yourself from other people. How do you do that? By showing value. I
Mhm.
brought that deal to that investor. He didn't know about this cash deal until I brought it. And then once he was able to see the numbers and what they were going to be able to make off of it, I was in the background like, yo, show me how to do this so
Mhm.
that I understand the game. So, you have to be able to add value before you start asking people for anything. Because if I was just like, hey, can you throw me deals? Can you give me this? I
For
would
most
not,
people,
right.
well,
I
that's
would
what most
not
people
have
do.
gotten the business.
Most people are like, "Hey, can you give me?" The best way to receive is to give
Most,
without expecting anything in return. If you give, things just come back at you, which is awesome.
yeah.
What I wanted to ask you is, I we talked a little bit offline about the rental arbitrage, about Airbnb.
Yeah.
Um, I'm doing some Airbnbs now. Obviously, I had a client that brought it to my attention and kind of shared with me some numbers, and I was like, I was shocked as to how
Yeah.
much money they were actually making. And he was actually doing the rental arbitrage as well too on a couple of properties. So what is rental arbitrage? What does that look like for you? And what are some of the negatives and positives that you've experienced with it?
So rental arbitrage is similar to a corporate lease, right? So I am arbitraging a rental unit in an apartment complex that I do not own, but I am
Mhm.
subletting under my LLC's name.
Yeah.
So that's one mistake that a lot of people do is rent out units in their personal name because that's a liability. And so you
Mhm.
want to deattach your personal name from anything business related that so that it doesn't come back on you. So
Yep.
you could do lease arbitrage at an apartment complex if they allow it, if they allow corporate leasing, because that's what you have to market that as. You don't go in saying, I want to do Airbnb. Do you guys allow Airbnb? No one, no one wants to hear that. What they hear and understand is, oh, that's too much incoming traffic. Oh no, that's gonna be too
Yeah.
much. And so
Too much.
they'll turn you down. But you have to go into it as a business. So I have a corporation that utilizes short-term rentals for our clients that come in out of town, and we vet our clients and we ensure that the unit is kept up to certain standards.
Mhm.
We are doing inspections. We have a security system. These are things that apartment complexes want to know so
Yeah.
that they understand that you're going to be a good tenant for them, right? So, what else? I've been having my unit for about a year and a half now. I got under a mentor to assist me with starting the Airbnb business. He's local out of Houston. He has multiple units, some that he rents, doing lease arbitrage, and some that he owns.
Uh-huh.
So to me, lease rental arbitrage is always an introductory step into real estate investing. You could have a portfolio that has a mix of lease arbitrage or ownership
Mhm.
so that you can keep it in the event something falls off, you still have some income coming in. You always want a diverse portfolio, period. But as far as lease arbitrage, it's just super important to make sure
Mhm.
you have your stuff set up so that you can market yourself accordingly to these apartment complexes and or landlords.
Hmm. That's awesome. And then for the numbers, you mind me asking what the numbers look like on the rental arbitrage? Like meaning like what is the rental amount, approximately how much it would bring in on a month-to-month basis, just to give people an idea. And just to clarify for like the viewers out there watching, on rental arbitrage, you don't own the building. You're basically leasing out the building, and then you can manage an Airbnb business out of it. So the risk or the startup cost is very minimal relative to going out there putting $100,000 down to buy a property
Yeah.
versus maybe a first month's rent and a first month's deposit, which is a lot less. So what do the numbers look like? That's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, so the area that I'm in,
Uh,
it's centrally located,
uh-huh.
and I've noticed that my clientele for this particular area is very particular, that I started to notice after a couple of months of having my unit. So
Mhm.
my unit can lease out as low as $89 a night,
Uh-huh.
all the way up to 139. And
Nice.
I use a price generated system
Mhm.
to fluctuate the price depending on the availability and also the demand. So
Uh-huh.
during the weekdays, usually is going to be the lower price. But
Uh-huh.
once you start hitting Thursday, Friday, it starts to increase. Now, if
Mhm.
I my lease at that particular complex is around 1800 for a
Uh-huh.
1 bedroom, 1 bath, but I can make up to 2325 on top of that. Or I can make up to that, so I'm able to cash flow a couple $100. So, it's less of a headache now that I have these systems in place. My cleaning crew is awesome. I barely see the unit. They stock inventory for me and just send me an invoice. If there's any repairs or maintenance that need to be made, I put in a request with the apartment complex. And I also ensure that I stay in great communication with the apartment complex so that they know that I'm on top of whatever is happening, because they know that I have a corporate lease. They know that I physically do not stay there. They know
Yeah.
that, it is in incoming traffic. So, as far as numbers, my first year, I was able to make 25 grand from that one unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Which is awesome because it's something that's scalable. I have a friend in Florida as well too that does rental arbitrage, and yeah, it's I mean you don't own the property, but it's a way
Right.
to get your feet wet into the investment game. So yeah, I see the Airbnb model growing, and I see a lot of people getting uh, into it, and I also see like I think it's a great model because I mean you're providing a service, and
Right.
people love that service, which is awesome. How involved were you at the beginning to how involved are you now? And what systems did you have to set up to maybe reduce some of that involvement in the Airbnb?
So I placed my Airbnb on the market right before COVID hit. So I want to say that was early March. And here in
Were you
Houston,
nervous at all because
you
of
said what?
COVID? Were you nervous at all because of COVID?
I was scared shitless. I'm sorry if I can say that, but like, it was my first investment.
Yeah, that's why.
I put up of course I paid the first month's rent, I paid the deposit, and then I also furnished it. So I mean, I was all in, like, like 10K. I'm like, okay, I got this. I'm gonna do this. And then I placed it on the market, started getting some bookings, because here in Houston during like the month of April is Houston Rodeo. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna make so much money. Um, and then they canceled the rodeo because cases started to rise. I go to my mentor, I'm like, yo, what am I
What
gonna
happened?
do? Because like I just spent a whole bunch of money, and it was my money. Like, it was my cash money. So I was like, I'm scared right now. And
Yeah.
he was, and I know that he had to shift his business too because he had maybe like 30 units. I had just one. So I'm looking at him like, what are you doing? Because I'm going to do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So, what we had to do was make sure that we catered to the clients as if they were long term stays. So, we provided, certain amenities for them for a longer term because at this point, people had to quarantine. A
Hmm.
lot of people's flights were getting canceled because it was just a lot of craziness going on. So it was a lot of uncertainty
Hmm.
with how the pandemic was starting off. So I would have to say a good couple of weeks I did not know what was happening. I wasn't making the money that I had projected to make starting
Hmm.
off. But then I started getting long-term stays from 7 weeks, 14 weeks, all the way to
Wow.
30 days. And sometimes I would even have someone renew another 30 days because they were working remotely or they were stuck here in Houston. Some people wanted a staycation because they were tired of being with family or at their own house, so they needed somewhere else to decompress, especially after the year that we were having. So
Yeah.
I started being very hands-on at the beginning. I was at the unit every single day. I designed it myself. I did everything myself. So I think I took the month of February off from selling real estate to really putting up my
Focus.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yeah, from scheduling handymen to help me assemble things to scheduling Wi-Fi and services and just all of this. Going to the store, buying stuff. It was a lot. It was my first one. So I took longer than I wanted to have it up and running. So now that I know things now going forward for my second one, I'll do things a little bit differently. But with having a cleaning crew in place, especially one that I trust, one that communicates, they have multiple people to come in and clean the unit for a flat fee because I negotiated that with them, which I told them, I'm like, if you want all of my Airbnb business, I need this flat fee. And I need it done within like 2.5 hours so that I can have people in place. Because most of the time I have back-to-back bookings.
Hmm.
And if it's long-term stays, they don't come in and change sheets and stuff like that. It's not a hotel and you don't get service like that. So it's like, on an average, my cleaning crew can be at my unit maybe 3, 4 times a week. If
Hmm.
it's a long-term stay, maybe, once or twice a month, depending. And during the pandemic, they weren't in there as much because of safety concerns and things like that. But we still communicated with the guests to ensure they had everything that they needed. Now I have a communication system that I use called Smart B&B.
Hmm.
I don't have to communicate with the clients because those are automated. When I get an inquiry, when I get questions, when I, check in, all of this information I've generated to send to them. So
Yeah.
I do not have to physically communicate unless it's a question outside of what's already preset to answer for them. And then also, I use Price Labs, which automates my pricing based on my calendar and availability. And they see the demand for the area. So, like, if we have Super Bowl or if we have a concert, that drives my prices up because I'm in a high
Yeah.
traffic, centrally located area.
Hmm.
So, COVID, I had a lot of potential to make a lot of money last year, but COVID definitely put a kink in things. But even this year, I've doubled majority of what I've made already
Yeah.
from last year because I've been able to influx and increase my pricing. Things are starting to get back to normal.
Yeah.
um, and kind of go from there. But I haven't seen my unit in a while, and by having a good cleaning crew and a couple of good systems in place, you just have to be the manager, and you have to make sure you're on top of it, but you do not have to be an active person going in and talking to clients if and guests if that's not how you built your communication system and your model for your Airbnb.
What would you say is a tip, like a pro tip to finding a good cleaning crew?
Gosh, so I was actually really lucky. I get cleaning services that want my business because I'm a real estate agent.
Yeah.
So I have only used two cleaning crews over the
Mhm.
past year and a half. And it's gonna be a challenge. But what you want to probably just do is vet them and ask, do they have experience with short-term rentals? How many people at a time is cleaning the unit? Just what their systems and processes look like and
Yeah.
how that can assist you with your business. So I actually had a couple of cleaning crews reach out to me, and then I gave them a try. I'll always keep one on the back burner in the event one of them messes up because I know that I still need a cleaning crew and how important
Yeah.
that is. So, definitely seek referrals from either other people who are in Airbnb or real estate agents, listing agents that
Mhm.
utilize them frequently so that you can have a good referral system because you will probably go through a couple in the very beginning.
Great. What does the pitch look like to, I mean, for rental arbitrage? What did the pitch look like to the property management company or to the owner? Because I mean, nothing happens without you securing that rental. Basically, it's probably the most, I mean, if you're going to do the rental arbitrage, probably one of the most important steps is to secure that rental. Because once you secure
Mhm.
that rental, now you've got the potential to make the income. Just curious what that conversation looks like.
A small business plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, literally, if you go into anywhere wanting to do business with another business and you want them to take you seriously, show them a business plan and show them how professional you are and that the people that you're bringing in are just as professional. Whether they think it's Airbnb or not, if they know you're going to be on top of it, then why wouldn't they want your business?
That's
Because
awesome.
I've even had landlords who were like, "Oh, I don't want Airbnb. I could do it myself." So if you knew how much money you could make, you should be doing it yourself. But
Mhm.
because you don't have a plan in place on how to get it done, which I say if you're running a short-term business, short-term rental business, run it as a business. Have a plan in place. Have an idea of how you want your clients because that's how you choose your clients too. I do not choose to accept every single person that wants to book my Airbnb.
Yeah.
I read their profile. I read other reviews from other hosts because that really says something. Like
Oh yeah.
reviews and pictures is what sells Airbnb.
Mhm.
So starting off, of course, a new listing, you don't have any reviews. I had professional photos done
Same here.
and I gave slight discounts at the very beginning. And then I started telling everybody about my Airbnb. Like, hey, this is new. This is in this area. And you start marketing it. And then, how you brand it. So, and how you set up your profile is important too. Because, what if somebody wants to go check out your listing and the photos are horrible? You don't know how to communicate your wants and your needs in your profile. The descriptions and the amenities don't match up. All of these things are very important, just as if us listing agents
Mhm.
were putting a listing on the market, it needs to really represent that property because we're working for our seller in order
Yeah.
to market that property accordingly. So
Mhm.
me, I'm working for myself in order to market that unit accordingly. So it needs to
Showcase.
look it needs to look nice. and I need to be able to communicate with the apartment complex. This is what I can do. And these are the results that I've gotten by doing what I'm doing with my business.
Yeah. Did they charge you a higher rent because it was a corporate lease, or was it like the same amount that they would normally charge an individual?
So it was the same as market value.
Wow.
So for me, I had a newer LLC. And so that's one thing that kind of went against me because I didn't have a lot of tenure with that LLC. And then they only start to give you discounts if you rent multiple at a time with them. So I didn't have a lot of negotiation in the price. But then also, once I renew, I can always look to renegotiate because now I have experience with them and with me. And thank God,
It's gone well.
nothing crazy has happened, and I hope nothing crazy happens, which you don't hear that very often, but thank you, Jesus. I definitely try to make sure that if there's something that's wrong, it's communicated to the property management, or I'm communicating with the guests to ensure everyone is happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's transition into social media. So you have a pretty good size social media following. How would you say, was that done on purpose, or was that done by like just everybody likes Porsche, or how intentional were you about that? And what were some of the techniques that maybe you used to grow it? And then has there been a benefit to having that as well too?
So I would have to say about 80% of my business is from Instagram.
That's awesome.
So and that's from buyers, sellers, and leases. I started my IG when I got into the real estate business. So I've only been having it since like 2018. And I've always been very intentional about what I post, how I post, who I follow, who I cross brand with, all of those things. So I think anyone who chooses to use a social media platform such as, Facebook and IG to assist in their business, you have to be intentional. I started off with zero. Now, I'm a little bit over 8,000, and I still don't think that's super high, but I can honestly say whenever I meet someone in person, I'm not giving out business cards. I'm telling you to go follow me. And that's very intentional because now I stay on top of mine because I post regularly. People want to see what you're doing. People want to be inspired. People want to see nice houses and do tours, and they want to envision themselves in what you are selling and marketing. So all of that has been very intentional. And I use Reels. I don't do TikTok. I think I would overload if I added another form of social media to my life. But
I think you would be great at TikTok.
thank you. I think I would drive myself crazy. But it's another form that people can get recognition and followers from, and I do not knock it. You have people on here dancing, you have people on here doing all of these different things to catch attention. But that's the thing. You have to do these things in order to catch people's attention, to them to recognize you and then understand what you're about. Because we can do all of the social media stuff, but then we definitely have to have the professionalism and the expertise to be knowledgeable in order to work with these people once they finally reach out to us after being so intrigued of what we're posting and talking about on social media. So, whenever I have the opportunity to join someone on a podcast, I'm cross branding. I want you to get the recognition. I want people to see what I'm doing. It's all intentional, and that's what business should be.
Yeah.
We have to have goals and objectives that are obtainable and actually follow through with them. I'm sure you have a marketing strategy in place specifically for this. social media is one of those tactics. It's just it's business, and it's the fun part of the business, but it's not always easy. You know, you have to schedule time, you have to know what you're talking about, you have to do all of these admin back end things that people don't see, but they see the finished product.
Yeah.
So I do try to be as transparent as possible when it comes to what the life of a real estate agent is. I don't, I'm not always bubbly and happy and stuff like that. I was on a call earlier with one of my investors who we placed an offer with, a bank owned offer. They accepted our offer and then told us the property that we are about to get under contract, they have a tenant in place for the next year. Why wouldn't they have told us that beforehand? Now my client has to go restructure her financing, her hard money financing with the bank, so that in the event that we did, in order to hold this property, the financing will go through, because we're not looking to hold on to it to renovate it. We're actually looking to purchase it, to tear it down, to build 2 new construction townhomes.
That's
so
awesome.
And the listing agent he didn't take responsibility for that information, but we still want the deal, so we got to find a way to make it work. So that was some hard conversations just this morning that I was having with her. She was having with her bank, and then also having with the listing agent. That's commission that I may or may not get, that I thought I had on the hook 2 days ago. So, things like that people don't know or understand, which is fine. But there's pros and cons to any business that you get into. Just don't count the money first.
Yeah. So you're basically documenting the journey and basically showing the good side and not the bad side, but you're being transparent. Because there's some people, whenever they're on social media, they only show you the good, but they never show the bad, like those conversations that you're having with clients. Our strategy changed. For a long time, I was not investing any time into social media. I was just like, okay, like it's a waste of time for me. Like I'm cold calling, I'm connecting with people. Obviously that served us well, but then I started noticing the power of influence.
Yes.
How important it is. And as soon as I started focusing more on social media, I started getting more direct messages. Not only that, but whenever I would meet with the people, they would be like so much nicer. They were like almost like fans.
Like, oh my God, I seen you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I know you from somewhere. I get it. I get it all the time, like, hey, I've been following you. Or if someone is interested in, my services, they'll let me know, like, hey, I've been following you for a minute and I'm just now reaching out because I'm interested in A, B, or C. So the power of social media is very powerful. And at the end of the day, real estate agents, we are lead generators. If we don't have any leads coming in, we don't get business. Yeah. So, it could be at one point, it was door knocking. I'm not door knocking. One point, it was cold calling. I don't like sitting on the phone doing calls. I love communicating. I love being visual. I want people to know me, see me, understand me, and like me enough to want to do business with me. And then I'm building my business off of the brand that I created for me personally. And it sounds like the same thing that you have done, because we get to live on digital for longer than a quick conversation we have with someone.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people, no matter what business you're in, social media has to work for you. Don't let social media get to you. It has to be able to work for you.
That's awesome. So how would somebody go from 0 to 8,000 followers? Like if somebody wanted to just go from 0, what's the first thing that they should do?
Oh my God, just meet as many people as possible. You know, at the end of the day, we're in the people business. So, tell people what you do, how you can help them. Because if they don't know, then how could they know to work with you? And that looks different for everybody. You know, you can do it online, you can do it, you know, via email, directory. Some people don't want to actually go out and talk to people. I've heard that before, which is okay. So if you communicating via, you know, writing, write your letters. Oh my God, personal letters. Because I was with a brokerage, they were really big on writing personal notes and stuff. I used to crank out like 100, 100 custom letters to people I've leased with, people that I wanted to work with, people that I met. Like, hey, I met you here. Thank you for your time. I would catch cramps. I'm like, I can't keep up with this. But some people that works for them. That's the whole Buffini, right? So I did a couple of Buffini classes and I took his stuff. And so that's what they teach you is the power of marketing via other forms of social media that may or may not work. So I think for any agent, it's not necessarily about the numbers. It's really not. Your followers, they'll come, they'll increase the more you do more. But it's quantity. So, like I was telling you, yeah, I'm at like 8,000, but I'm not engaging with all those 8,000.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that my IG stories, I post on my IG stories every single day. Whether it's real estate related or personally, I just know that I've been consistent over the past 3.5 years. That's what I'm good at, right? And I can tell you, out of maybe the 100 same people that watch my stories, I've closed with majority of them. Or I'm now in the process of doing business with them because that's how they got to know me. And then once you get to know me, you're like, oh, she's about her business and she knows what she's doing and I like what she's about and I connect with her or whatever.
Yeah.
People that you do business with, you know, like, and trust.
Yep.
Like at the end of the day, that's how I do business. I want to do business with people that most of the time either I've connected with or I've been referred to because I trust the person who referred me to them. You know, we feel better giving our business and our time and attention to other people that we know want the best for us. Because I'll tell my clients all the time, I'm not a transactional type of client, type of agent.
Yeah.
I want us to be in business for the rest of our lives. I want to be able to assist you with your home purchase, your investment purchase. If you need something from me, I'm sure I can just call and connect you with someone.
Yeah.
And I truly think that that's good business practice.
I think that's the key because most agents, they cash their commission check and like a lot of times the client never hears back, but finding ways to continue to add value and stay in front of them, I think is obviously good. The other thing you hit right on the head is consistency, you know?
Yes.
Like, I think the fact that you've been consistent for the last 3 years of posting every single day is what has allowed you to get results. So whether you're doing anything, you know, whatever works for you, as long as you stay consistent with it, I think that's the key. And that's why you're successful as well.
I mean, consistency in anything. If you listen to Tony Roberts, if you listen to Buffini, if you listen to Grant Cardone, whatever that you choose to specialize in, you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, we can be given the blueprint, but if you don't follow that model, then how can you be afforded the results from what has been given to you? So real estate, as you know, is hard. It's not easy. You know, you have to get clients, maintain, you know, staying on top of the market, the education, the expenses. It's very expensive to stay in real estate. People don't know that. They think you're making the money, but then you're also cashing out a lot of money too for marketing, travel, all of these different expenses that keeps you in the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the most important thing for any business is just finding a way to generate business. You know, without that, like the number one thing to run any business, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's real estate, whether it's attorney, nothing happens without the acquisition of the customer.
Most definitely.
Find a way to do that in whatever niche you're at. That was my biggest mistake. I was in retail before I got into real estate. thought the customer was just gonna come to me. I thought I got my real estate license now.
Yeah, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm
Yeah,
ready
I'm
to
like,
go conquer. I have a beautiful smile. I have the work ethic. Where are my clients at?
I thought I was just gonna get like 10, 15 clients, and the reality was that it wasn't, because in retail, that's what would happen. Like I would get 10, 15, hundreds of customers walking into a store a day. So I thought, oh, real estate's gonna be the same thing. Boom, rude awakening. It was not the same thing.
I did retail in college, so I completely understand.
Yeah.
I completely understand. But everyone has to fail and then overcome. I mean, I know me and you are not overnight successes by any means. And I will tell anyone, I've had moments where I want to give up. I have moments where I doubt myself, but then I have a why. So you want to understand what your why is, right? So for me, I want to be financially free.
Mm-hmm.
I am doing this for my daughter, so that we are taken care of. She doesn't have to worry about anything. If I give up, then I'm giving up on her. So why would I give up on myself? Because that's like me giving up on two people. So there is no backup plan. I'm not going back to corporate. I'll hire somebody from corporate before I go back to corporate, because I get to hire the smart people, the more money that I make to do the stuff that I'm not an expert at. That's the goal. As business people, you start hiring the other people that you outsource so that you can free up your time, and they're the experts. Because we can't be experts in every single thing. Oh my goodness, I was listening to a podcast, Earn Your Leisure podcast. It just came out earlier this week with Shaquille O'Neal. Funniest thing ever. I totally suggest you go listen to it. He is the prime example of hiring everybody else to do exactly what he is not an expert in, because he utilized his money and his resources to do so. So not only has he established himself outside of his career, but he owns brands, actually legacies, such as Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe. He owns those names. I was like, that's unheard of to own.
Yeah.
So royalties, all those royalty checks go to him. That blew my mind. That's a different kind of rich. I was like,
it's funny that you bring up Shaquille O'Neal, because I was watching something with him like 2 days ago, and he was talking about how he was trying to get security cameras for one of his houses, and they were all quoting $70,000. And then he invested in Ring. He's one of the earlier investors in Ring, and it was just so simple. It was like, this is a cheaper alternative. It's a great company.
Bought it at Best Buy.
It's very simple, and obviously he's made some really good investments. So he's definitely. I wouldn't expect that from Shaq, to be honest, but he's a very smart person.
He is. And in that same podcast, he talks about not wanting to be the smartest man in the room, because now he gets to learn from the smart people in what to do and what to invest in. I mean, now he owns Papa John's. He invested, in Google before it was Google. He talks about all of that, and I'm like, wow, like you can't judge somebody from the outside or where they came from, how they talk.
The way they act sometimes on ESPN or
no, he's crazy, but don't let that fool you, because he's super close to being a billionaire.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the power of just who you surround yourself with. I got involved in a mastermind recently where I had to pay $25,000 to be part of that mastermind. And I'm probably the dumbest person in the group. And that was done on purpose. Yeah. Like, because I wanted to get to a different level, Yeah. But it's the same thing that Shaq's doing. It's the same thing that you're doing as well, too, which is surround yourself around people that are smarter than you and learn from them. Be open to listening and kind of sharing what they have to offer you. So
the easiest form of social media that you can do that with is Clubhouse. And I'll jump into these rooms and I'm like, oh my God, they're making how much? They don't even have to work if they don't want to. Like, I'm like, wow, I can't wait to get to that part of my life. But these people have worked at it for so long and now they're able to teach others how to get to where they are now. And, before Clubhouse, you could probably message someone in their DMs or LinkedIn or something, and they may or may not respond and whatever. So you can jump into these rooms and listen to these people and ask questions if you get the opportunity. So, I'm considering placing myself in a mastermind because I want that direct connection with other people who are doing well, or if there's anything that I can assist with, I'm pouring into another person, because then you start getting that good energy back. I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, I'm getting to a point in my career, I'm like, I want other people around me to be successful. I'm getting overwhelmed a little bit sometimes, so I'm like, if I could start helping other young agents get to where I am, then that only betters me as a leader. And we should always aspire to lead by example, for the good. And all of that stuff comes back at you like tenfold. So I'm totally down for that.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah.
Good. Great. So I believe that's the show. If there's anything else that you'd like to leave the listeners with, also if you can share where people can find you, either an email address, social media handle, that would be awesome.
Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to Porshae Brown, your real estate agent here in Houston, Texas. I am with Equinox Realty Group. You can find me on Instagram at Realtor Porshae, and Porshae is spelled Porshae Brown. I'm also on Facebook, so it's Porshae Brown. And you can click the link in my bio to schedule a buyer's consultation, a seller's consultation, or just trying to figure out who I am. I'm happy to assist and connect. I love meeting people. I love being able to add value wherever that I can. I've noticed, when you put out those good vibes, it just comes back. So I love what you're doing. Thank you so much just for inviting me. I think these things are so fun. I may even start doing it myself. Sorry. Because I'm like, oh my God, I'm having so much fun. I get to talk to all of these different people and just connect. So I love doing that. And I appreciate you for inviting me on.
Awesome. I'm so grateful for you being on. And yeah, I get to spend an hour with somebody extremely successful and learn from them in one capacity or another. The other thing is we're building relationships. Who knows that one day I'm not going to go out and invest in Texas or something, or
Right.
You come out to California or something. So that's the part that I love the most, the relationships. In the last 3 interviews, I picked up like little gold nuggets here, like it's a gold nugget here, a gold nugget there, and another gold nugget there. So that's what I love about the podcast, that it's introducing me to different people in different parts of the country that are successful in their own way. So
the referral system is real. That too.
So thank you for doing that. Everybody, this was episode number 69 of the Morales Group Show. We had Porshae Brown. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button. If you saw enough value, feel free to share it with your audience. Thank you so much, everybody. And till next time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.